Did you know that Ethiopia attracted close to 1.2 billion USD in investments during the first 4 months of the current Ethiopian fiscal year? With over 80 reforms implemented in the past 6 years to enhance the investment climate, Ethiopia is readier than ever for business. In this episode of Ethiopia in Focus, I will be speaking with Dr. Zeleke Temesgen, Commissioner of the Ethiopian Investment Commission and a member of the National Macroeconomic Committee. We will delve into the measures Ethiopia is taking to improve the ease of doing business and its efforts to foster a conducive environment for investments. So today's Ethiopia in Focus conversation is with Dr. Zeleke Temesgen of the Ethiopian Investment Commission, and we will be discussing on unlocking opportunities, driving investments for sustainable growth and development. Dr. Zeleke, welcome.
Thank you so much.
So if we look at the historical genesis of investments or foreign direct investments in Ethiopia, one could perhaps say that there has been a closing off for a long period of time, for many decades in Ethiopia. And we have remained closed off from global markets. There have been efforts prior to attract investments. Nevertheless, the legal regime, the investment legal regime was very backward. Many areas were closed off from foreign direct investments. There was also quite a heavy reliance on manual practices versus the demands of what a digital age requires. And I remember post-2018, Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed had launched the first initiative of its kind, which was the Doing Business Initiative, which was ensuring that the environment was conducive for the types of foreign direct investment that we were looking for. And he was also chairing and leading the National Steering Committee. Since then, over the past 6 years, more than 80 reforms in various areas targeting investments have been undertaken. And that's quite a huge number when you look at the short time frame. In a way, we're making up for the decades-long closing off. So to start it off, maybe you could give us a little bit of context and background to what does the investment environment look like right now in Ethiopia?
Thanks so much, Bilene. Before directly coming to the question you just mentioned, I think it's important to briefly mention the mandate of the Ethiopian Investment Commission so that I can directly come to the question that you just mentioned. Well, but when I say the mandate of the Ethiopian Investment Commission, particularly like any other investment promotion agencies, the Ethiopian Investment Commission is also mandated to attract or to lure foreign direct investment into Ethiopia. This means that the primary target or the main target of the Ethiopian Investment Commission is basically foreign investors. But it does not necessarily mean that we exclude domestic investors who also have a limited role in terms of attracting, in terms of actually engaging domestic or private sector here in Ethiopia. However, even though our main mandate is to attract foreign investment, when foreign investors come to Ethiopia, they can also invest here in Ethiopia through at least two kinds of modalities. One, they can using based on the support they get from the Ethiopian Investment Commission, as well as based on the support they get from other government institutions, they can invest on their own. That means they don't require partnership with other government institutions or with domestic investors. The second modality which basically investors or foreign investors use to invest in Ethiopia is to create a sort of partnership with domestic investors, as well as with some of the Ethiopian government institutions, for example, such as the Ethiopian Investment Holding, because another investment arm of the Ethiopian.
So public partnership, private partnership.
Absolutely, yes, yeah. So they can engage either through joint venture mechanism with private sectors, domestic investors, as well as with government institutions such as EIH, also with other relevant government institutions. So the main mandate of the Ethiopian Investment Commission in this regard is basically to attract, as I said, foreign direct investment. However, whether they use the JV modality, joint venture modality, or whether they are going to invest on their own, then the Ethiopian Investment Commission provides end-to-end service to foreign investors through its one-stop service arrangement. As part of our basically OSS system or one-stop service arrangement, we provide different kinds of supports or assistance to foreign investors.
So the OSS system, again, because it leads back to the first question that I asked you, is a new undertaking.
Absolutely.
And I had indicated earlier on that we had manual practices, and as part of the reforms, ensuring that you have this one-stop service as part of creating the conducive environment is something that came.
Absolutely.
Can you elaborate on these other elements that are now part of this conducive investment environment that have been created?
Absolutely. I'll come to that point. Okay, so the Ethiopian Investment Commission basically has the one-stop service system, and then as part of this one, we're providing different kinds of services. That means when foreign investors come to Ethiopia, they are not required to go to different ministries, or they are not required to knock the gates of different ministries or the gates of regional authorities. That means we provide every service on spot. For example, we provide support with regard to immigration issues. That means, for example, when a foreign investor arrives here in Ethiopia, the Ethiopian Investment Commission, as part of its OSS arrangement, it actually provides investment visa support so that they can get this expedited investment visa procedure, as well as we also support them with regard to the residence permit. Aside from this, we also provide support across different issues. For example, with regard to the banking issues, when bank and bank-related issues, as well as in terms of also creating this market linkage with domestic investors. So the main idea behind the one-stop service is basically to create a very conducive environment for foreign investors as well as for local investors, so that they are not required to go to different ministries, and then that way we are able to also cut what you call it red tape procedure. So regarding the issue that you mentioned about the ease of doing business initiative, as you mentioned, the ease of doing business or the project was actually initiated back in 2018. So in fact, when the project was initiated, when the Prime Minister himself was actually initiated this project, Ethiopia was ranked 159 out of 190 countries globally. This means that it was quite difficult to do business here in Ethiopia because of different kinds of bureaucracy that we have across different ministries or across different regional government offices. So this actually pursued us, or pursued the Prime Minister himself actually, to take a bold and a progressive measure so that to improve the ease of doing business here in Ethiopia. So basically, the ease of doing business initiative has got two different phases, but different in the sense they are highly interconnected. But the phase, in terms of phases, it was actually divided into two different phases. The first phase, which actually started in 2019, as part of this first phase, the Ethiopian government was able to identify around 100 different reform items or measures or items which can actually require amendment across different service provisions. That means in order to create a very conducive environment for foreign investors, then the Ethiopian government should have conducted reform across these 100 reform items or measures. So following this one, so the Ethiopian government, as part of its implementation stage, when the government started its implementation stage back in 2019, so out of these 100 reform items, the Ethiopian government was able to implement 80 reform items. This means that basically the government has took a very bold measure in terms of creating what you call it this conducive business environment. But the issue is that, for example, as part of this one, as part of the 80 different initiatives, if you look at, for example, the legal reforms that the government has taken, so more than 85 different legislative forms or reforms have been taken place in Ethiopia. For example, previously the commercial code that we have, it stayed here, in Ethiopia for more than 50 years without,
right?
Absolutely, without even amendment. So now, as part of this reform initiative, we were able to revise the commercial code, and as well as part of this reform initiative, we were also able to, in fact, approve a new capital market proclamation. It's new. We didn't have that kind of mechanism here in Ethiopia. Also, we were able to also approve what you call the e-transaction proclamation, and as well as commercial registration and then business license also is part of this broader spectrum. So this clearly tells you that the Ethiopian government is taking a very bold measure, a very serious commitment in terms of creating a very conducive environment, a very enabling environment for foreign investors.
Then maybe let me ask you, Dr. Zeleke, when we're talking about reforms within the legal regime for making investments conducive, can you unpack it a little bit? If we've changed several, codes, if the commercial code has been changed, what does it actually mean for a foreign direct investor that's trying to invest in Ethiopia? How does that translate into what they're trying to do here? If you have specific examples as well.
I think that's a very good question. So normally when you amend or when you change laws, the main agenda, the main objective that you want to achieve is to create predictability or certainty for foreign investors. That means any foreign investor that comes to Ethiopia makes an assessment before investing here in Ethiopia. So they assess the legal regime that we have. They assess the environment, the ease of doing business environment and everything, and based on that one, they make a decision. So this kind of actually reform, the reform that we've made in terms of legal, in terms of amending or improving the laws that we have, one, it creates a very conducive environment in terms of actually creating what you call it predictability for investors. Mm-hmm. Aside from predictability, because the moment you start changing laws every time, then basically you are going to have a very suspicious environment. You're going to create a very suspicious environment for investors. So one, it creates what you call it predictability and as well as certainty. But the issue is that aside from this one, it also broadens the area of engagement, the area of the scope of engagement for foreign investors. For example, let me take one example, the trading sector. Ethiopia closed its doors for almost more than 50 years when it comes to the trading sector. But recently, as part of these reform initiatives, the Ethiopian Investment Board adopted a new directive which opens up the trading sector. That means foreign investors, now they can engage, they can invest in trading sector, particularly they can engage in wholesale trade.
And retail.
Absolutely. Retail trade, they can engage in import trade as well as in export trade. So it also actually broadened, it also widened the area of engagement for foreign...
Sectoral liberalization.
Absolutely.
So there's been, as you said, an enhancement to the investment legal regime. There has been a lot of areas, sectoral liberalization that is attracting different investors. When it comes to Ethiopia's economic focus on 5 economic pillars, this has also opened up areas before that were not, conducive to foreign investments as well as local investments as well. With all of these changes that have been made as part of the Ease of Doing Business initiative, what have been the responses from investors that you have encountered?
I think that's a very good question. So basically as part of these reform initiatives, there are positive responses that we have been receiving from investors coming from different corners of the world. For example, if you look at the data that we have, even if you compare the first quarter of the previous year with the first quarter of this fiscal year, there is an increment, in FDI increment, there is around 6.4% FDI increment here in Ethiopia. This clearly tells you that there is a positive spillover effect of this reform. Aside from that one, in terms of also boosting the confidence of investors, because investment activities, confidence is quite important. Because the moment you create confidence, then basically they are going to invest the money that they have. And as well as they also help you in promotional activities. That means they also basically talk good things about the country and then engage in promotional activities. So one, in terms of practically increasing the FDI here in Ethiopia, it has brought a very positive impact. Second, in terms of also boosting the confidence of investors, right now we're actually encountering different kinds of investors, and they are telling us that the confidence level, the reform is basically fostering confidence to foreign investors. Mm-hmm. So this clearly tells us that even though the result of a particular reform, whether it is in Ethiopia or whether it is in other countries, the impact, the outcome of a particular reform can be seen over the years. I mean, you cannot just entertain the result of the reform overnight. Mm-hmm. But practically, as you can see here in Ethiopia, at least early results have been actually achieved in terms of FDI and as well as in terms of what you call it confidence building mechanism.
And you did touch upon what I wanted to elaborate on a little bit, which is in the past quarter, over the past 4 months itself, the Investment Commission has been able to record an attraction of $1.1 billion in terms of foreign direct investments. And this is a positive, this was one positive aspect of the changes that have come. But in your opinion, I want to know, as a result of this, what is it that makes Ethiopia a competitive investment destination at the moment?
I think there are a number of factors that makes Ethiopia a very competitive country compared to some other African countries or some other countries across even the globe. One is the issue of the strategic location. So, as you know, Ethiopia is located in a very strategic location. That means, for example, if a foreign investor comes and then invests in Ethiopia, so using, for example, Addis Ababa as a hub, within 8 hours of flight, you can reach out to more than 3.5 billion people. That means using the Ethiopian Airlines, because the Ethiopian Airlines right now goes to different places. So if you take a flight from Addis Ababa, you can easily reach out to different more than, in fact, the number that I have is you can reach to more than 3.5 billion people within 8 hours of flight. So one is the strategic location that Ethiopia has.
Enabling proximity to our aviation
absolutely industry. To the Middle East as well as to the European continent. The second issue is basically Ethiopia is a big market because right now we have more than 120 million. So this is not just a number. So this clearly tells us that Ethiopia, the current Ethiopian population is more than 120 million, means that Ethiopia is a big market. And plus, you can use this population, one, as a factor of production. As a factor of production means that you can use them as an input in order to produce a particular product. Second, these people can also consume different products that can be produced here in Ethiopia. So the big market or the population side is also, I think, additional issue which can be mentioned. The third issue is with regard to energy. Compared to any other countries in Africa or even across the globe, Ethiopia offers cheap energy here in Ethiopia for foreign investors. For example, right now we are receiving more, we are seeing more appetite from foreign investors to engage in data center and crypto mining sector. Mm-hmm. This is purely because of Ethiopia's energy sector, because Ethiopia actually provides a very cheap and then actually very competitive energy sector. So this is also additional, I think, opportunity. The other issue is the infrastructure. Mm-hmm. As you know, here in Ethiopia, we have built close to 30 industrial parks. Now we call them special economic zones. So if you look at all of these industrial parks, all of them are actually equipped with the required infrastructure. So this also creates a very conducive environment for foreign investors to come and invest in Ethiopia. And it also actually gives a competitive advantage to Ethiopia compared to some other African countries.
Can you expand a little bit in terms of the required infrastructure that you say? Within these industrial parks, what is available?
So let me just go back and then explain a bit the industrial parks regime that we have in Ethiopia. Right now, we have 3 different categories of industrial parks. Now we call them special economic zones. Some of them are actually owned by the federal government, and then they are 13 number. And then some of them are actually administered or owned by the regional states, and we call them integrated agro-industrial parks.
And we have an uptake of private sector also investments in creating industrial parks.
Absolutely. So we have also these integrated agro-industrial parks. All of them are actually owned by regional states. We also have like industrial parks or special economic zones, which are developed by the private investors. All of them are in fact owned by foreign investors. So right now, we have 5 operational special economic zones in Ethiopia. One is what you call it Woda, which is located here around Addis Ababa. The other one is Huajan, is also located in the heart of Addis Ababa. And the other one is East Industry Park. And so we have in total 5 industrial parks which are operational. So in terms of the facility they provide, one, all of these industrial parks will provide what you call it the OSS system. That means investors, as I mentioned earlier, investors are not required to go to different ministries. Rather, we provide end-to-end service at the park level. Second, even in terms of utilities, electricity, the banking sector, telecom, all these utilities are also part of our industrial parks, road construction, everything. So this also creates a very conducive environment for investors to come and invest in Ethiopia. Particularly when investors come, in order to just easily engage and easily invest in Ethiopia, I think industrial parks are the most preferable destination compared to even investing outside of industrial parks.
So earlier on, I had mentioned the focus was quite a departure after 2018 in terms of what is the guiding principle or the backbone for Ethiopia's economic trajectory. And this has been the introduction of these 5 pillars to focus on, namely manufacturing, agriculture, ICTs, mining, and tourism. So with this focus as part of Ethiopia's homegrown economic reform agenda that we've been following over the past 5 years, what would you say are key investments in these areas specifically? If we could name them across 5, as well as within the energy sector.
Thank you, Billy. I think the Ethiopian government has, as you mentioned, identified 5 strategic sectors. Sometimes we call them also key sectors or priority sectors, but in general, let's call them strategic sectors. One of these strategic sectors that we have is the manufacturing sector. When we say manufacturing sector, basically we are talking about different projects or different investment areas. One, for example, as part of the manufacturing sector, we can mention textile and apparel. We can also mention laser and laser products, as well as the pharmaceutical products. Pharmaceutical products, particularly, it can be small molecular medicines as well as the biologics. So this can be considered as manufacturing sector. So manufacturing sector is one of the strategic sectors that we have here in Ethiopia. The second strategic sector that we have in Ethiopia is the agricultural sector. So as part of the agricultural sector, we also have, such as, for example, fertilizer, animal feed, and then this improved seed, and then different kinds of investment projects can be categorized or fall within the realm of what you call it agriculture. So it's also the second strategic sector that we have here in Ethiopia. The third strategic sector that we have is tourism.
But within agriculture itself, because one of the backbones of Ethiopia's economy is agriculture, and I feel like not only for local investors, for international investors as well, it has a lot to offer.
Absolutely.
Particularly when we look at coffee, yes. Ethiopia being the birthplace of coffee, so around coffee processing. And I think within the past few months as well, Ethiopia has been able to register a record number in terms of coffee exports. When we look at honey, livestock, so maybe if you could expand a little bit around what other opportunities that investors may have not seen that is availed through our agricultural initiatives.
So let me just come back to the coffee issue. Earlier I mentioned about the trading sector. So following the fact that the Ethiopian government has opened up, as I mentioned earlier, the Ethiopian government has opened up the trading sector. So following that one, right now we received a lot of applications, particularly with regard to coffee, in order to import as well as export coffee. So this means that the agricultural sector, being the backbone of the Ethiopian economy, it provides huge opportunity for investors. For example, as I mentioned earlier, fertilizer, it provides a huge opportunity for foreign investors to come and engage in this sector because the most lucrative, and as well as in terms of demand, there is a high demand here in Ethiopia. In terms of also, if you look at the improved seeds here in Ethiopia, because we are agrarian, so it also provides a very good opportunity for investors to come and invest here in Ethiopia. Animal feed, right now, there's a shortage in terms of animal feed. That's also a very good opportunity for investors to come and invest in Ethiopia, particularly with regard to animal feeds, coffee, and then all these issues are a very lucrative, actually, investment portfolios, a very lucrative opportunity for investors to come and invest in Ethiopia. So let me go back to the issue that I just started. So the fourth strategic sector that we have is basically the tourism sector, and then tourism also consists of various sorts of investment projects such as MICE, sometimes also called event tourism, recreational activities, and then a lot of investment opportunities can be also given to foreign investors here in Ethiopia. ICT is also the other strategic sectors.
In tourism itself, conference tourism has always been big, but now Ethiopia considered the fourth diplomatic capital of the world. There is a lot of activities that are also coming here. So facilities around that are also a lucrative potential in that sense.
It is, absolutely.
Destinations development as well.
Absolutely.
We've already embarked on that as part of government endeavors, but also that offers another opportunity.
Absolutely. Yeah, so in terms of return that you mentioned, so which sector actually provides the highest return potential, I think it's quite important to focus on these strategic sectors. As I mentioned earlier, even though the Ethiopian government has identified these 5 strategic sectors, the Ethiopian market is still a virgin market. That means whether an investor engages in one of these strategic sectors, or if you are planning to engage in all of these strategic sectors, basically Ethiopia or the Ethiopian market actually provides premium returns to foreign investors. So that means the Ethiopian market has not reached the level of saturation right now. It's not close to saturation. So engagement in any of the 5 sectors can be lucrative for investors, and they can easily come and invest in that sector.
Okay, maybe if I could take you a little bit again in terms of unpacking an opportunity, particularly in the energy sector, because Ethiopia is considered the water tower. So what does it mean in terms of investments and opportunities in that area?
I think regarding the energy sector, Ethiopia has abundant renewable energy resources. Currently, the potential that we have huge potential with regard to hydropower, with geothermal, with solar, and as well as wind energy. So this clearly tells you that, especially with the potential that we have, so there is a huge market opportunity for investors to come and engage in one of the renewable energy sectors. They can engage in geothermal, they can engage in solar energy, they can engage in hydropower. Most of the energy sources that we are using in Ethiopia is basically hydropower, but still the potential is there even to further expand in other areas such as solar and then wind energy. So Ethiopia also offers that kind of great opportunity for foreign investors.
Now, Dr. Zeleke, as part of creating a conducive business environment, I imagine that the trade agreements that Ethiopia is part of is also something that is of interest to potential investors as well as existing ones. Can you clarify in terms of what are some of the trade agreements that Ethiopia is a party to?
Currently, Ethiopia is negotiating to join the World Trade Organization. We've been, in fact, the Ethiopian government has been negotiating in order to also be part of this organization. But the Ethiopian government is already a party to the African Continental Free Trade Area. That means earlier I was mentioning about the fact that Ethiopia is a hub for foreign investors as well as for different diplomatic communities. So since Ethiopia is part of the Continental Free Trade Area, then if someone invests in Ethiopia, then it creates a very conducive environment to unlock even opportunities which exist across different African countries. That means investing in Ethiopia can give you an opportunity to reach out to many African countries, even almost all of the African countries. So investing in Ethiopia is not just a mere statement. It's a very strategic and then a wise decision, because since Ethiopia is also part of this free trade area, it also gives you access to different markets in Africa. Aside from this one, Ethiopia is also part of COMESA. It also gives you preferential treatment so that you can also use the benefits which are actually given to member states of COMESA. That's also another opportunity for foreign investors.
Bilateral trade agreements also?
Absolutely. Okay. Absolutely. Yeah.
So one of the challenges that has been cited previously by investors has always been the foreign exchange regime. In the past few months, Ethiopia has undergone, as part of the second homegrown economic reform program, a lot of changes have come across implementation within the macroeconomic areas. And one of this is liberalizing the foreign exchange regime. What has been the uptake and the early results of these macroeconomic reforms reflected in investments?
As you mentioned, over the past 6 years, the Ethiopian government has been conducting various sorts of reforms across different sectors. So some of the reforms which the Ethiopian government has conducted are quite relevant for the economic sector, particularly for the investment activities in Ethiopia. But even though the government has been conducting this reform over the past 6 years, recently the government also announced the fact that it has taken comprehensive macroeconomic reform. So before actually directly responding to the question that you just mentioned, I think since the reform has started over the past 6 years, it's also important to mention some of the result of the reform activities that the Ethiopian government has been taking here in Ethiopia. As I mentioned earlier, particularly with regard to the investment activities, for example, we were able to amend our investment law. That means the previous, for example, investment law had a very restrictive provisions, a very restrictive environment for foreign investors. That means it actually followed what you call it a very positive listing approach. And in terms of area of engagement, it also gave a very narrow area of engagement for foreign investors. But now, as part of the reform activity that I just mentioned, then a new investment law has been approved, and then this also created a very wide opportunity for foreign investors. That means now the area of engagement is quite broad compared to the previous one. The second issue, the SEZ proclamation, which recently the Ethiopian Parliament has approved.
The Special Economic Zone.
The Special Economic Law. So recently, the Ethiopian Parliament also approved a Special Economic Zone proclamation. This also gives a very good opportunity for existing industrial parks to be converted into a state of special economic zones. So following this one, following the approval of this proclamation, recently the Ethiopian Investment Commission has converted almost all of the existing industrial parks into a state of what you call it special economic zones. Particularly also, in an exceptional manner, we also designated the Ethiopian Investment Board, also designated the Dredwa Special Economic Zone as a multi-purpose special economic zone. That means now within Dredwa Industrial Park, within Dredwa Special Economic Zone, you can do different kinds of activities. You can do trading activities, you can do logistics activities, you can do service as well as manufacturing activities. So it provides multi-purpose special economic zone. The other issue is the trading issue that I just mentioned earlier. So after all these reforms, recently the Ethiopian government also announced the comprehensive macroeconomic reform. So particularly one of the challenges which investors in Ethiopia used to mention was actually the FX issue, the Forex issue, or the foreign currency shortage. So particularly with the liberalization of the Forex issue, now Ethiopia is able to narrow the gap between the black market or parallel market as well as the official market. Aside from that one, for investors that are actually right now investing in Ethiopia, it has created a very good opportunity. In what sense? One, for example, a foreign investor that invests inside industrial parks, inside special economic zones, can now have like up to 100% foreign currency retention. This is new. We didn't have that kind of arrangement earlier. So this created a very good opportunity for investors to come and invest in Ethiopia. Aside from this, basically in terms of also remitting dividends. So we had a very difficult situation in terms of giving opportunity for foreign investors to remit their dividends to their preferred country. But now, even this also creates a very conducive environment also for investors to also remit their dividend quite easily or smoothly compared to the previous regime. Plus, even the response that we are getting from different investors, from different associations, from Industrial Park Association, is quite positive when it comes to the reform, the recent macroeconomic reform. That means it creates a very good opportunity for investors, not only for existing investors, also for investors that are actually planning to come and invest in Ethiopia. So it's actually the reform is able to curtail or able to address one of the big challenges that we had here in Ethiopia.
Thank you for sharing that, particularly in terms of repatriating their dividends. You come across a lot of investors potential as well as ones that have already been established here. For the ones that have been established here, can you share examples of what this new foreign exchange regime has meant for them? If you have specific examples around that.
For example, in terms of when investors want to, for example, bring duty-paid capital goods, construction materials, so far they were relying on Franco-valuta regimes. But however, the fact that the Ethiopian government has taken this kind of bold measure has created a very good opportunity for investors, even for existing investors, to use this mechanism and then to even further expand as well as to reinvest their investment here in Ethiopia. That means, for example, rather than using Franco-valuta regime, in fact, the Ethiopian government has already imposed the Franco-valuta regime. Rather than using that one, now they can easily access foreign Forex from commercial banks. That means the reserve even that we have, in fact, the National Bank of Ethiopia might say a lot on this issue, but the reserve that we have even at the National Bank of Ethiopia has increased dramatically. So this creates a very good opportunity for investors, for commercial banks in Ethiopia, and as well as for investors to access even Forex from commercial banks. So for existing investors, it gives a very good opportunity to access Forex from commercial banks. As for the remitting or repatriating dividend, earlier, one of the challenges that we had, aside from the Forex issue, was actually the repatriation issue. Repatriation from international point of view, from international law point of view, it's a right. Investors have the right to repatriate their dividend, their profit. That's what the law guarantees. Even as part of our legislation, they are legally guaranteed to repatriate their dividends as well as profit. However, because of the shortage of Forex that we had here in Ethiopia, then they were not able to even repatriate. Yeah, so they had to go through this waiting process. That means they had to wait even for a very long period of time, and then that kind of actually waiting creates a very frustrating environment for investors. Now, the reform is able to reverse all these kind of challenges, and then it's creating
so that wait period has been eliminated?
Absolutely. It's creating a very good opportunity. Yeah.
Okay. So when it comes to what you had mentioned earlier about creating a conducive business environment, part of creating that is enabling confidence building. So these measures that have been taken as part of the macroeconomic reforms, would you say that they are strengthening or building more confidence among potential investors and existing investors? Absolutely. Even though the result of the recent reform is quite early to assess it's quite early, but still the responses, the feedbacks that we're getting from our existing investors, as well as even from prospective investors, is quite positive. That means even when we engage with different investors in Ethiopia, as well as even outside of Ethiopia, for the purpose of actually luring them into Ethiopia. One of the issues that they used to mention was about the Forex issue. But now, following the reform that the Ethiopian government has taken, even prospective investors are basically showing great confidence to invest here in Ethiopia. So the reform has created, not only for existing investors, also for prospective investors, it has created a very good opportunity, a very good confidence. And then that one, we were also able to notice through our engagement with different investors association. So Dr. Zeleke, we've talked about what Ethiopia offers investors. We've talked about the various sectors that there's a lot of opportunities in. I want to hear from you shortly in terms of what kind of investors is Ethiopia looking for?
The Ethiopian Investment Commission recently were able to revise the kind of investors that we need to attract to Ethiopia. Well, earlier we had what you call a general investment promotion strategy. That means you just go to the particular conference and you attend there, and then you distribute business card, and then you call it like you made investment promotion. But now we decided to change this approach because it's not successful. So we changed this approach into what you call a targeted investment promotion strategy. Target investment promotion means basically based on our unmet demands. We have a number of unmet demands. That's why we also identified those 5 strategic areas. So based on our strategic areas and as well as based on our unmet demands, we're able to identify potential countries that the Ethiopian Investment Commission as well as the Ethiopian government is able to target. So based also on the number of countries that we're able to identify, we're also able to identify big, sort of like jackpot kind of companies. Right now, we were able to identify to be specific, 2,507 giant companies from different corners of the world. This means across different sectors, we have 5 strategic across these 5 different sectors.
But those that have the potential to value add?
Yes.
To support the job creation agenda as well? Like these are the kind of factors that you're looking for?
Absolutely. So the kind of investor that we're looking, one, very healthy. The one that they're not going to exploit the country. Second, in terms of also value addition that you mentioned, one, in terms of value addition, we expect something from them. Second, in terms of also skill, knowledge, transfer, we also expect something from them, as well as in terms of job creation. And then finally, in terms of also export earning, because the goals of investment, when you talk about investment has particular goals. One is skill and knowledge transfer, and as well as technology transfer. The second one is the job creation issue. The third one is linkage between foreign investors as well as domestic investors. That way we can also create a sort of bridge between the two. Job creation and as well as the export issue. So the ones that we are right now targeting are basically the ones that are going to meet our demands. Job creation, export, and as well as all the issues that I just mentioned. But they have to be healthy, and as well as those investors that are not going to exploit the resources of the country, but we expect investment is a mutual benefit after all. That means you benefit the country, and then you can also benefit from their engagement in Ethiopia. So we are particularly targeting 2,507 different big companies that can achieve the goals of our investment.
My last question for you before we depart is, what, in your opinion, would you say investors should be looking for in the next few years from Ethiopia?
So now, one, we are creating a very stable and predictable environment for investors. Because for an investor to come and invest in Ethiopia, one of the issues they actually look for is the issue of predictability of the legal regime. So we are creating that kind of predictability and certainty for investors to come and invest in Ethiopia. Second, in terms of also ease of doing business, right now we are working day and night in order to curtail any kind of delays across service provisions. That means Ethiopia particularly is creating a very conducive environment in terms of ease of doing business. That also creates a very good and then a very conducive environment for investors to come and invest in Ethiopia. So ease of doing business, we're working day and night. That also gives a very good opportunity for investors, as well as the issue of stability, what you call it, the predictability of the legal regime, and as well as the support the Ethiopian government provides to investment. When you say support, the Ethiopian government provides end-to-end support for foreign investment through its investment commission, as well as through different ministries and regional states. So the Ethiopian government is also there to support investment activities. So I think this also gives a very good opportunity for investors to come and then invest in Ethiopia.
So in summary, a commitment to ease of doing business, continuing the ease of doing business and creating a conducive environment, predictability, and creating a stable and secure environment for investments.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much, Dr. Zeleke.
Thank you so much.
Ethiopia having ratified the CFTA in 2019? And what are the preparations that we're undertaking to make intra-Africa trade a reality?
Ethiopia has a very strong interest in terms of its neighbor country, the Horn of Africa, and in our foreign policy itself, that is the focus. The main purpose of that is when countries, especially neighbor countries, you integrate an economy, peace would also be inevitable. So economic integration is the strong glue to tie the countries around us for sustainable and shared economic growth. And beyond that also, we really need to think of how we can boost our economic growth within the continent.